you'll be more able to comprehend or to to discuss and to elaborate more on issues regarding welfare, issues regarding wildlife. So feel free to ask me questions at any point in time. We'll do this more or less like well, I can't do it like the way I do postgraduate classes. It's like in a forum method. But you're okay to highlight questions to me at any point in time. Although being online, so I might miss your question. So I would like the class rep to actually highlight to me lah if there is any questions from the chat, or if there is a question, if there is any verbal question. We'll start sharing my screen now. So this is VPK 4695, right?
Yes.
Cool. Are you guys in campus or you're in your respective homes?
Some of us are already in campus, but some of us are at home.
Back home. Right. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the current situation. I feel like it's nice for you to be able to connect from your homes, but it's definitely not okay for a vet student, especially in clinical years, not being able to experience what clinical works are. So, yeah. So today's topic is on welfare issues in wildlife. We have 2 hours actually, but I'll try and finish it in 1 hour because being online, sometimes I understand that some of you, not all of you, some of you have difficulties getting connected, and giving a full 2 hours lecture is unfair for people who are able to be connected at half that time. But I'll share the lecture notes to everyone later. And I didn't get the name of the class, right? Is it Yuchi? Who's the class rep?
Doctor, you can call me Yuki.
Yuki, okay.
Yes.
I'll share the lecture notes to Yuki later. And then what else? Oh, okay. Usually the first test is revolves around my lecture notes, or it's not it does not revolve around my lecture notes. It revolves around my topics. So my questions are going to be not directly from the notes, so you probably have to take and elaborate a little bit more on what you know so far. Okay, today's lecture is on welfare issues in wildlife. I think all of you took VPP 3271 with me when you're in second year, right? So DVM4,
Yes.
any one of you are my PA student?
I'm here.
Okay. Oh, Abe is here. Oh, okay. Abe, how's your connection?
Okay je.
Okay je. Okay, good. Good. Abe kat kampung ke dekat bandar?
Kat kampung lagi.
Alright, cool. Kalau ada musim durian, bagi tahu kat kita orang semua. Kita orang semua akan pergi ke rumah Abe.
Boleh.
Alright, okay. Let's get back to the lecture. Welfare issues in wildlife. As usual, working questions. What is the definition of wildlife? Why is welfare of wildlife important? Why is there an issue on welfare of wildlife? And who is in charge of ensuring welfare for wildlife? Okay, I think I gave you this definition back in, this year is 2021, right? Back in 2019 lah. Okay. Back in 2019, when you were a DVM2, I gave you this definition. So I suppose it's the simplest form of definition of wildlife. If you forget, then you're in trouble. Okay, it's free roaming vertebrates. important function. It has an important function in the natural ecosystem. It has a lot of niche, seed disperser, predator, prey, grazer, scavenger, burrower, pathmaker, genetic reservoir. What do I mean by genetic reservoir? Can anybody elaborate on that? Oh, Yuki, you keep wait, if I give 1 mark to a person who answers, just keep the score, please. Their name and also their mark. Okay.
Okay, noted.
I like to give marks away. So what do I mean by the term genetic reservoir? Atau apa in Malay it's called, I don't know what's it called in Malay, genetic reservoir.
Doctor, I want to answer.
Yes, please.
Okay. So it's basically a reservoir for like genetics. So
Well, you just described the words. It's basically a reservoir for genetics. Well, come on, elaborate a little bit more. I give you a mark. I mean, this is final. This mark will carry to your final. Anyone? Lagi, okay, elaborate more. Apa yang cakap tadi, Mira Raz. Is this your real name? Do I know anybody by this name?
Mira Razlan actually. Doctor.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Anyway, so it's like a reservoir for like genetic, meaning macam like all the genes. Wait, how do I explain this? Kejap. Okay, so okay. So
Class
like-
is going to take more than 2 hours, okay? Waiting for her to describe this.
okay. Macam tu lah. It's like reservoir for like, genes and stuff like that.
Yeah, but why is it? Why does it have its niche? There. You know, niche, the role. What is the function of the genetic reservoir?
To ensure like it doesn't go extinct.
Okay lah. I'll give you a mark. Okay?
Thank
Give her a
you.
mark. Okay, anybody else want to elaborate on that?
Is it natural reservoir, doctor?
Yeah, natural reservoir for what?
It's like for example that carrier for things, for example like a disease carrier, for example. So I don't know.
Okay.
The
Yeah, I give you a
population
mark for that.
specific
Disease.
environment.
What else other than disease? What else other than
Specific reproduces environment what I don't know, doctor.
Okay lah, I give you a mark. Okay, Fatia, I give you a mark. Siapa lagi? It's interesting ni, genetic reservoir ni. I need you guys to understand something
is it
about the environment.
the genetic reservoir, is it like it creates a pool of genetic material so that variations can happen within species?
Exactly. I give you 2 marks. Tanzian, I
Thank
give
you.
you 2 marks. Yeah. I think you got that from both the earlier questions. Okay, they were describing a smaller part of the definition of what genetic reservoir is. Okay, but you actually managed to sum up. Okay, so what genetic reservoir means is that there is. Do you know that half of the world's drugs or half of the world's remedies comes from the environment, and a significant part of the environment is wildlife. You know that some antimicrobials are derived from wildlife products from wildlife. So these are all coded in genes. They are all genetic coded. So these are it's like if you're in a library and you want to look for books on crocodile reproduction, and then you find that in UPM's library there's only 2 books. Okay, but if you sum up all the libraries in the world, okay, you probably find about 500 books on crocodile reproduction, and that's what it means. That's what it means by having a reservoir. A reservoir that is endless. I mean, it's not endless, but it is, yeah, in relation in relative to our resources, it's endless. Okay, and there are some some aspects of the genetic reservoir which there are negative, like Fatia was saying just now. Okay, there are some diseases in the wildlife that is harmful to us, but there are also some remedies that is inside the wildlife or inside the environment that is beneficial to us. So that's what I mean by being a genetic reservoir. Of course, if I ask you more on seed dispersers, predator grazers, scavenger burrower, this class is probably going to be on this one slide. Okay, so for all wildlife, there are different types of behavior. A lot of wildlife are naive. A lot of wildlife are cautious. Some of them are shy. Most of them are fierce, and fierce by our own definition, by our own perspective. Sometimes it's just normal for a crocodile to be that 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 robust, but it's probably normal for the crocodile, but we call it fierce. Okay, and some animals are behaving in a certain way because they need to be, because otherwise they will not be predators, they will be prey. Okay, so there are also different social structures in wildlife. There are matriarch groups. Okay, for 1 mark, what is matriarch group? Matriarch, are you guys having your breakfast now? Marka, Fatima?
Doctor, I want to answer. It's like
Yes.
a group that the female is like the more superior one.
Yeah. You get a mark, Yuki. Yeah, it's a group that is being led by a female leader. Okay, so that is called matriarch group. It's in the environment. It's undeniable. It happens. So any one of all the boys here feels that, oh, okay, only boys get to lead. Not necessarily. Elephants are one of the example of matriarch groups. Okay, they have groups, and most of the elephant groups are being led by a lead female, by a matriarch. We call it matriarch. Okay. Of course, most of the groups in wildlife or animal groups are patriarchally, okay, led by a male. There's also fission, like the lions of Africa. They come to meet and then they separate, okay, fuse. And what's the root word of fission? I think there's no root word of fission, right? It's just fission. Okay. Fusion and fission. Bukan macam kedai cafe, fusion menu. Most of the wildlife in Malaysia is solitary. Can anybody give me, for 1 mark, can anybody give me example for solitary animals in Malaysia? The big ones.
Tiger.
Tiger. Kevin said tiger. Anybody else? Solitary.
Pangolin.
Pangolin. Okay. Sajida. Thank you. Anybody else? I give 2 more marks, 3 more marks. Kelas ni senang sangat kan? Maka dia bersepah-sepah macam jatuh. Pardon? Tapir? Yeah. Okay, Arvin gets a mark. The marks are falling down from, like a Christmas tree.
Orang-orang hutan, Doktor.
Orangutan, yes. Thank you, Amma. One more.
Shrew dog.
Pardon?
Shrew.
I didn't get that. Is there anything in the chat? How do I check the chat if I'm sharing the screen?
Polar bear ada.
Polar bear. I want the wildlife in Malaysia only. Macam mana nak check?
Oh, okay.
Is Sambear solitary?
Yeah, sun bear. Thank you. How do I see the chat? I haven't used Webex for quite some time. Asian leopard cat. Okay. Dah cukup. Enough answer. Sekejap Ria, I was interrupted by my daughter. Okay, and also harem, like the macaques. Okay, wildlife in captivity. So, basically, what you will be working with in the future will be captive wildlife, because I have high respect for people who are actually working with free roaming wildlife, but the opportunity is very rare, and most of the working environments are quite harsh, and most of the management has to be done remotely. So, for example, if you want to treat bacterial infection in captive wildlife, it will probably take you like half a day's job in captivity. But if you actually know of a particular wildlife in the environment that has a bacterial infection, some maggots, or maggot lah, some form of okay lah, maggot infestation lah, jangan cakap bacterial infection lah, you won't know what from the wild. But maggot infestation in free roaming wildlife will probably take you like 3 to 4 weeks, just to get it settled, right? So time is the factor lah. So what defines a captive wildlife? I think this one is very easy. A wildlife that is being kept in an enclosure. Okay. I have a question. I don't know whether I posed this question to you back in 2019 while you were in DVM2, but is it necessary to keep wildlife in captivity? Let's revisit this question and see whether you have any change of thoughts. Since you're DVM2, now you're in DVM4. Is it necessary to keep wildlife in captivity? Okay.
I want to try to answer it.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the situation. Um if it's like for conservation purposes, so I think it's okay. But if it's like perfectly fine wildlife, like in zoos, and like they train tricks for wildlife, I don't think I'm against that.
Okay. Good answer. I agree with you in that sense. There are certain situations where you have to remove wildlife from the environment just because you want to protect them. Okay. There's a huge issue regarding this. There are some people are for it, some people are against it. Okay, those people who supports this, how to say, like us lah, like most people who work in the veterinary field, we want to be realistic, and if we allow the wildlife to be left in the environment, if you know that there are dire situation, or like a really really fatal situation for the wildlife, then something must be done to protect the animal, and that will be our principle. Okay. However, on the other side of the spectrum, there are environmentalists, or there are people working with wildlife and working with the environment, who says that some animals are just past their due date. So extinction is real. So extinction is actually a natural process, and it needs to be allowed to occur, because when you say extinction, regardless of how much amount of resource that you put into stopping extinction, it will definitely happen. You will only slow it down, but it will definitely happen. Having said that, I think passionate people like us, okay, like you, who are working with animals, you will not stop at any point in time to try and save wildlife. So that's the big issue. there's always a risk. We tried to capture all rhinos, all these Sumatran rhinos in the peninsula back in the 1990s, and kept them in one facility. And then an outbreak of disease occurred, and then all the animals died, and then rhinos became extinct in Peninsular Malaysia. We tried to stop extinction of rhino in Borneo. We did not succeed. So yeah, but it is necessary to keep some wildlife in captivity, for the protection of the animal itself. There's a big difference in managing wildlife in captivity and managing wildlife in its natural habitat. And some questions arise from the difference of management in captive wildlife and free roaming wildlife, and also keeping wildlife in captivity has its own issues. Can anybody highlight to me, what are some of the issues, before we actually look deeper into the topic? What are the issues in keeping wildlife in captivity, for Marx?
Welfare issues, nutrition issues.
Okay, welfare issues, Kevin. You get some mark. Welfare issues, nutrition issues. What else? Welfare is broad. Okay, somebody can elaborate that for me. You can actually go to the the 8 o'clock news and tell them, okay, welfare issues in captive wildlife. But they will probably need you to elaborate a little bit. What will the issues be? Okay, some of part of it is nutrition. What else?
Enclosure.
Enclosure size. Okay, that means it inhibits certain normal behavior, right? For the animal.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anybody else want to try?
The pleasure of having human around.
Okay, the pressure of having human around. Yeah, you get a mark on one chin. Actually, in Chinese character is XIN. Is it chin or zin?
It's seen, doctor.
Sin. Okay, good.
Seen.
Sin. Okay. Anyone else? Last round.
The higher possibility of developing stereotypical behavior.
Yeah, behavior issues. Okay. Okay, wildlife in captivity comes from different types of enclosures. Some of them are public zoos, some of them are private zoos, some of them are in research animal facility. Some of them are in safaris. Even though they're free roaming, some animals are in enclosures. Circuses, pet shops, and wildlife sanctuary. Okay, out of all of this, which one do you think that is most unnecessary?
Circus.
Circus, okay, thank you. Siapa cakap tu?
Azrin.
Okay, you get a mark. Second, ranking kedua.
Pet shops.
Okay, you get a mark.
Safari.
Actually, if you ask me, okay. Out of all of this, the most unnecessary one would be the private zoo and also the circus and also the pet shop. The three most detrimental places where wildlife should not be in. Okay, for more marks, I think you guys will finish test 1 lah. Siapa yang tak jawab memang markah kosong lah test 1. Yang takut okay, for more marks, can somebody explain to me why circus is not cool? I mean, it's not cool. It is one of the most detrimental part of keeping wildlife in captivity. You know what's the meaning of the word detrimental? Maknanya paling teruk lah. Yang merosakkan.
Because in circus it's for entertainment purpose kan, that's why the circus is there. So they train animals to do stunts, which
Mhm.
is which will cause stress to them, and then it's also abusive in a
Okay.
way.
Okay.
Uh, um,
Mira, you get a mark. Sajida, you get a mark. Okay.
Also, I think circus animals are mostly taken from the wild, straight,
Yeah.
and it
Exactly. Leah, you get a mark.
I would just like to add a bit to Mira's point out. So the way they train is usually negative reinforcement
Okay.
by
Negative reinforcement.
whacking them and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep. So not okay. Very detrimental.
Doctor,
In
can I
fact,
try?
yes, please.
Okay, apart from the behavior changes, I feel like the animals are also kept in very small spaces.
Mm-hmm. To save, save costs. Exactly. Imran, you get a mark. Tadi I saw a chat by Fuji. Well, right again. I missed that. I don't know how to check my chat while sharing the screen. I'm being unfair to the chatters. Well, I can open the chat. Okay. They beat animals. Yeah. Hauji, they beat animals. Shazima said, giving physical and mental trauma during animal training. Yes. Very true. Very true. Okay. Enough with the circus. I think we've elaborated enough on that. Very uncomfortable transportation. Yes, very true. Liana. Okay. Now we go to ni. Private zoo dulu. Why is private zoo detrimental?
Because they sedate the animal for people to taking picture and do activity. Keep sedate the animals.
Okay. I give you a mark. Ni Shazima. Okay. They unnecessarily sedate the animal, just to make them docile. Or sometimes they just they chemically induce the animal to be tamed. Anybody else? Why is private zoo ridiculous? I mean, why is private zoo that like so unnecessary?
Because people start to develop the idea that these animals can be kept as trophies.
Okay. You get 2 marks, Kevin. You don't want to take the test one, ke? Okay. Yeah. You don't want private zoos to be a threat. I mean, imagine this. Okay, imagine this. Malaysia give allowance. Okay, allowance, bukan allowance duit. They give kelonggaran. What I mean by allowance is kelonggaran. Okay, they give allowance to anybody who's willing to to invest 2 million ringgit to own their own private zoo, in their own backyard, or in the facility that they own. Imagine that, and imagine how many rich people suddenly decide to, okay, let's invest 2 million ringgit, each and every one of us. There will be like what 1,000 rich people who suddenly decides to create their own private zoos, for their own consumption. Means they don't eat, but they get for their own entertainment, or for their guest entertainment. Suddenly it becomes a trend where, okay, the list of private zoos in Malaysia has gone up, to 1,000 private zoos. And imagine how many animals are taken, like Leah said just now, how many wild animals are taken. Yeah, I don't want to mention the name of the sultan. Okay. But yeah, that is one example for uh you know Kevin, we're not exposing anybody in this lecture, okay? But yeah, I've been to that place, and the current sultan actually inherits the place from his dead father. So he's not at fault. He likes animate objects. The father likes living animals. So yeah. So what happens is that if we allow this, private zoos to be mushrooming everywhere, imagine the amount of work that you will have to do. Imagine the amount of work that amount of loss of wildlife, that is being removed from the nature. into captivity. So private zoos are totally unnecessary, and it's not even borderline selfish. It's totally selfish, to keep exotic animals in your houses. What we want to train the people nowadays, the public nowadays, is that if you want to see something that is difficult to see, you must go through difficulty. You want to see bird of paradise, you go to the island of Maluku, or you go to that island where they have a lot of bird of paradise. Go into the jungle, experience the nature, then you appreciate why they're beautiful in that sense. You don't want to remove the bird of paradise from the environment, take it and put it in an enclosure, your 5x5 enclosure, and then there's nothing to enjoy there, right? You get what I mean, right? Okay, private zoos, no. Okay, how about pet shops?
Doctor, for pet shops, they do those illegal ways to get the pets. Like for example, the dusky leaf monkey, they'll go to the extent where they just kill the entire pack to get the baby and then just sell at the pet shop.
Exactly. So these are all cruel things that occurs, in the process behind the scenes. Okay, Jilin, you get a mark. Illegal breeding, that's true. You get a mark. Zian, just now you get a mark. No pet shops. I mean, there are a lot more animals, that can be, that can become pets, as compared to, okay, pet shops dispose sick animals, true, and with illegal breeding. Okay, Sajidah, doktor nak tanya, what are your thoughts of using wildlife for movies? I suppose they have to go through rigorous training. Of course, Sajidah. Um, if you look at movies that has wildlife in it, okay, I mean actual wildlife, like not CGI, movies that actually have actual wildlife in it. What does the star animal get? The star animal doesn't get anything. The livelihood of that star animal is lavish, but it's not its natural behavior. Pet shops, yeah, encourage people to buy wildlife as pets. Do you know that you guys should Google? There's a recent amendment to the Wildlife Act for online sales for exotic and wildlife. So before this, I think the fine and fees were up to, I think about like 50,000 or 100,000 or 200,000. But now you can be fined up to 1 million or 2 million, if I'm not mistaken, in the recent amendment. For let me check that, for these amendments for selling wildlife online. So if you guys, keep your eyes and ears, open, for anybody who tries to sell dusky leaf monkey, gibbons, these people need to be whacked. I mean, like not whacked, but these people need to be taught a lesson. It is not theirs to sell. 15 years in prison. Is it 15 years? Let me check. Okay, let me see. I found a Malay article. Since this is a class, zoonotic disease spread easily in pet shops. You get a mark. Ketana. Pet shops also introduce invasive species. Yes, you also get a mark. Arvin. Rang Undang-Undang Pemeliharaan Hidupan Liar 2021 lebih responsive. Okay, what it says here is that check. Okay. So denda maksimum bagi kesalahan berat seperti kes melibatkan pemburuan haram is increased from 500,000 to 1 million. Hukuman penjara is increased from 10 years to 15 years. Where's the one on online sales? Okay, this one. I I think it's good for me to actually tell you guys this because it will be etched in your minds, so that it is my job as a lecturer to inform you on this so that you will know, and then you probably share it around. But then again, you've already known it, because sometimes you might miss it. So yang ini, you know that the Akta Hidupan Liar is actually Akta 716. Remember that, Akta 716. Okay. Pada masa yang sama, Section 88B, there's a Section 88B, okay, you will encounter this a lot, when you work, as veterinarians after you graduate, okay. So Section 88B turut diperkenalkan bagi membolehkan tindakan perundangan dikenakan kepada individu yang mengiklan atau mempromosi hidupan liar bagi maksud menjual atau menawarkan perolehan hidupan liar secara haram. Because before this, the Department of Wildlife is not able to monitor or they are not able to enforce, online sales, because there's no provision. Now they can. So whatever you see online as the younger generation, straight away report to Bilitan. So for these people to be, educated. I baru slide berapa ni? Okay, jap. See the question just now. Doctor, I have a question. What is your opinion if the wild animal was kept by human already tame? Usually those animals that kept since young. Is it okay for us to keep them? Will it survive if we let it go to the wild? Okay, saya jawab ni. Tengok dulu soalan di bawah tu. My mouse. So I also have a question. What are your thoughts on clipping birds' wings at zoo so that they don't fly away? Okay. First question by Liana. What is your opinion on wild animals was kept by human already tame? Usually those animals that kept since young. Is it okay for us to keep them? Will it survive if we let go? Okay, these animals will definitely not survive. If you let this animal go back into the wild, it definitely will not survive. And those animals that are kept since young, if they are rescued, and it's okay. But if they are purposely removed, from the wild, to be domesticated, and then it's not okay. It's the same. You change that wildlife, you change the wild animal into a human. Do you think it's okay? Okay. Sekarang ni, if you look at the animal itself, then you have the same question, right? But if you change that wildlife into a human, okay, is it okay for you to actually take care of a boy or a girl, and then eventually when they grow up, you let it go? Will it be able to survive? I don't think so. But the first question is, why did you actually take the boy, or the girl initially? So that is the bigger question lah. Okay, so the second question is from Mira. What are your thoughts on clipping birds' wings at zoos so that they don't fly away? Okay, there's a reason for us to do that actually, because the really wild ones will try to fly, and if they're able to fly, then they will encounter more injuries, flying in a closed space. So it's necessary for us to clip the wings of the birds, to be kept in captivity. But the bigger question is that why would the animal be there in the first place? Okay, it's a huge issue, for us. You'll be thinking of this, more and more towards, in the next few days before you forget lah, before you return to your rotas and everything. But then I think it's good to trigger your mind, for all these issues, because some wildlife, just don't belong in captivity. Birds should fly. Gambar ni korang boleh tengok? Have you guys seen these photos before? Have you guys seen these photos?
Tak pernah.
Tak pernah tengok tak pernah tunjuk Oh, ruginya korang. Okay, This is a Tantalus monkey. This is how to say, semi-wild cage is in Africa, where I was working with with the chimpanzees, and there's another researcher who actually does this research on Tantalus monkey, and he was using this animal, and he rescued this animal, because the animal was injured. What I wanted to show you is that if you have to create an enclosure for animal, try and do a better one lah, as compared to wires, and steel poles as in this one, temporary one. It's just not okay, for temporary pun. Yeah. Hi doctor, is there any regulations in Malaysia for private zoos to have proper clinic facilities and vet? So far, there is no regulation. There's no regulation for private zoos for private zoos to have proper clinic facilities. It's just that it's best to have one lah. Okay. This is Glenn Low asking, okay, doctor, are pet shops really all bad? Because as far as I'm concerned, most of them are enthusiastic hobbyists, and they provide even better care and nutrition to the animals. For example, Sarukata tortoise that are listed as vulnerable. People are keeping, and I think it actually helps slow down the extinction with the help of hobbyists keeping it and breeding it. Okay, like I said, in the next maybe a few hours or a few days, these ideas will come to your head, discussing keeping of captive wildlife. So okay, Glenn, yes, it's true that it's true that a lot of pet shops are animal enthusiasts and hobbyists. Okay, but two main principles that I don't agree with pet shops is that, number one, pet shops should not sell invasive non-native animals. Okay, non-native animals and exotic animals. Pet shops should be selling, domestic animals. So domestic animals itself, okay, the term is very vague at the moment because of the influx of exotic animals being treated as pets. But the issue with pet shops is that, in general, okay, they still are income generating entities. They will still sell these animals to individuals, and they have no authority and they have no assurances that the buyers of these animals will be responsible owners. Get what I mean? I mean, it's not as if you apply to buy, you apply to buy an iguana from a pet shop. The pet shop owners will actually have a checklist, or are you a male sitting? Are you a married couple? Do you have an area of certain square meters in your house as space for the iguana? Will you have this? Will you have that? Will you have this? Will you have that? No, pet shops don't do that. So that's my big issue with pet shops. Okay, if they are not able to regulate, if they are not able to ensure that the buyers are responsible buyers, then it's very difficult for them to. It's very difficult for me to agree for pet shops to be selling exotic animals. Number two, my issues with pet shops are that will the pet shops be able to help the conservation of this animal after the animals have been sold? Okay, because once the animals are sold, it's out of their head. So whatever conservation, whatever breeding, whatever uh, hobby that they had earlier while the animals are still in the pet shop will be diminished as soon as the animals is outside the pet shop. So there's no assurances that conservation continues. There's no assurances that welfare is maintained. There's no assurances, of the standard requirements for keeping animal in captivity is being kept once the animal is outside the pet shop. So my point is, rather than having these issues, around, we might as well, not sell non-domestic animals to people. We already have enough issues with, domestic animals being kept in irresponsible with irresponsible owners. How are we supposed to manage another, cluster of people who tries to keep, an animal that at one point in time, as soon as it reaches a certain size, is difficult for the owners to be keeping them and then suddenly releasing them, into the environment as invasive species. There's a lot of issues there. But I agree with you. Not all pet shops are really bad. Most of the people that I know, I mean, a lot of the people that I know are pet shop owners. I try to have this kind of discussions with them, and they seem to be agreeable to a lot of things that I said. But still an income-based industry. Okay. Doctor, ni siapa ni? Fatia. I really want to know, are we having the right specific SOP for animal in captivity? I mean, in terms of size of enclosure, training, etc. We follow for captivity, we follow the CIAZA and also the AZA requirements. So these are the best possible requirements that we have at the moment lah. I'm not saying that it's inadequate, but I'm not saying that the current requirements is perfect. It's not. So whatever SOPs that we have, you have to refer to the AZA or the CSR. Okay. Yes.
Doctor, sorry, you missed a question from Zeling. Yeah,
Okay.
up there.
Yang mana?
Yang if there is an exotic pet that is illegal, but it's
Oh, doctor, I have a question. If there is an exotic pet, okay, Zeling, exotic pet that is illegal but is sick, should we treat them or straight away? Oh, you should treat all animals first. Always treat them first. Like I said, change this into a person, okay? Like my wife, she's a pediatrician. Change this into a person, okay? She gets, sometimes she gets, cases of child abuse. She treats the person first. She treats the boy or the girl first before she reports child abuse. Same thing. Okay, Zeling, treat the animal first. Okay, IUCN's listing is based on the animal at its natural habitat and demographic. Yeah, I think that one is true. I think what Kevin said is true. Sometimes, for example, currently the false gharial or the Malayan gharial are considered vulnerable just because there's not enough data. The IUCN listed it down as they upgraded the status from endangered, into vulnerable because there's not enough data. These animals are very elusive, so I don't know how it actually works with IUCN. That's why I've been invited for a few IUCN committees, and I think some of the working factors in the IUCN is not I'm not agreeable to some of it. Okay. All right, let's continue with the lecture. This one is African crested porcupine. These are all animal. This is an animal kept in one of the universities in Africa, and they wanted to have their own private zoo. This is why I don't like private zoos. Okay, African crested porcupine being kept in a very small cage. It's like an African fish eagle being kept in an enclosure about my height. I don't think eagles have been this low, in terms of altitude. So it's just a small enclosure with wires everywhere. This is university lah. I will disclose what university it is. This is striped hyena. Striped hyena. There is spotted hyena. There's also striped hyena, and this animal is kept in. You can see the enclosure lah. It's too small for it, and it has that bleeding looking eye, and the body score is not so good. And then spotted hyena is kept on in a very hot day in concrete facility with a night pen that is just like a a hole, and everywhere outside it's actually hot cement. All these animals are looking dejected. African lion, these are baby lions, also juvenile lions, and chimpanzees walking in the street, probably thinking that it's a human. Okay, so let's get back to the lecture. Management of captive wildlife. Okay, wildlife kept in zoos originate from different types of ecosystems. I think you can establish that. Okay. There is an infinite series of variables from microclimates to vegetation that exists as a prerequisite to the establishment of an enclosure. What do I mean by this? What do I mean by this statement? Infinite series of variables from microclimates to vegetation that exists as a prerequisite to the establishment of an enclosure. Can somebody, decipher what I mean to say? And I can decipher what I mean to say, but I want to know whether you understand or not.
Doctor, is it like when they're kept in the enclosure, it's best to mimic their natural environment as close as possible? So that's where the variables come in.
Yes, exactly, Sajida. You get a mark. When you let's put this in the context of a sun bear. Let's put this in context of a sun bear. I like to discuss sun bears because they are very cute animals. They can become very fierce and very injurious. Okay? So sun bears. Say you rescue one. Okay. Say you rescue one, and then you treat the animal, and then now comes the big question. Okay, where do you keep them temporarily while the animal is healing before you release them into the wild? So point number one. Who wants to give me point number one? Point number one is the first question is how what would you put inside the enclosure of the animal for 1 mark?
Tree branches.
3 branches. That means your enclosure needs to be a little bit bigger, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you get a mark. What else? What else do you want to put in there?
Like fruits or like food that they can browse around.
Okay, fruits that they can actually browse around. Okay, you get a mark. Actually, not 3 branches lah. Put a tree bowl, a bowl. You know a tree bowl or a tree trunk. That will be nicer lah for the bear. As compared to branches, susah lah dia nak. Okay. What else? Injuries to
Water
the hind.
bowl.
Water bowl. Yes, water bowl. Primarily must have in there. What else? Grass. Grass or hay? An area of privacy. Okay. Yes. Good exposure to sunlight. Some form of enrichment. Yeah, Hui. Okay. Okay. First things first. Where would you want to put the enclosure?
At the quiet place, doctor.
At a quiet place and at a place where, okay, put it this way. Have you guys been to the National Wildlife Rescue Center, the NWRC for Pilitan in Sungkai? Some of you have been, some of you have not, right? Okay, but okay, nantilah kita pergi. So, the reason why they put that, the reason why most of the Department of Wildlife's animal facilities are located, you know, on the fringes of a wildlife sanctuary or a wildlife reserve, is that they don't want the wild animals to be removed too far from the from their own microhabitat, or from their own from the forest or from the natural environment, because there are inputs from the environments that we do not notice but the animals notice. And say we put a bear's enclosure in the middle of the KLCC park. Okay. So KLCC kind of taman, you put an enclosure there. It will definitely not be the same as if we compare to incomparable lah. If we macam mana, dia takkan sama macam kalau you put the enclosure in hutan simpan air hitam. It's not the same. Even though you can, lavishly spend a lot of, money on creating what you think is most appropriate enclosure for an animal, but once you put it too much, if you removed it further away from its natural environment, then it will not be a comfortable thing for that particular animal, because you must remember, first things first, the animal is actually a wild animal. It is not a domestic animal. That is one of the areas, or one of the downside, or one of the dangers of people working with wildlife, is that they think once the animal is in captivity, it has been transformed from being a wild animal into a domestic animal. That is a wrong approach to go lah, because the animal is still wild and it still needs input from the environment. Okay. As many wildlife are kept in captivity for aesthetic purposes, contact with the public is unavoidable. So proper captive management is important to minimize stress to the animals and also to the keepers. I tak ingat tadi siapa cakap yang tadi for the stress for being around people. Yes, that is a major thing for wildlife. So you will notice that the more common zoos, or the more recent zoos, they try to hide, instead of trying to hide the animal, they try to hide the people. People are looking at the animals from a vantage point. Some people are put behind reflective mirrors, or tinted glasses, so that their presence is less felt by the animal. Although I don't know how that works actually. Talking about animals' perception, we are nothing, in terms of perception as compared to the animals. So what we think are right might not be right at all this while. So welfare issues of captive wild animals. Okay, for animals in captivity, for wildlife in captivity, welfare is directly controlled by those that keep them. Okay, so if you keep an animal in a zoo, so the zoo manager is directly responsible to maintain the welfare of the animal. For rescue and rehabilitation centers, the rescue centers directors and the workers there are directly responsible for the welfare of the animal. For exotic pets, if it's in a pet shop, so it's the pet shop owner's responsibility. If it's individual ownership, then it's individual owners, responsibility. For farming, okay, there are also farming for farming of wild animals. We do not have that many here. We have, crocodile farms. We have, I don't know, do we have ostrich farm? I mean, farms that actually breeds ostrich for sale. I think we do. So yeah, I don't know why you want to eat ostrich. Anybody here has eaten ostrich? Ada banyak lagi avian punya daging. Boleh makan kot. Sedap ke? Is it good, Glenn? Hard. So I suppose ostriches being, you know, muscular animals, keras lah kot, not so tender lah kot the meat. Alligators, who have eaten alligator farm and crocodile farm? Okay, who has eaten crocodile meat? You know that crocodile meat is very popular in Thailand and Vietnam. That's why they farm these crocodiles. Green pernah. Okay. I don't know. Okay, I have a question to ask all of you. Do you think crocodiles are insensitive animals that you can actually treat them, you know, in a way whereby you can actually farm them and, you know, slaughter them and then eat them as much as any other, you know, chicken or, you know, goat? Okay, Sajida said they're not a commodity. Anybody here likes crocodiles? I mean, the living crocodile? Okay, I tell you some facts about crocodiles, you know, from my experience, because I've worked with crocodiles a lot. As compared to turtles, okay, crocodiles actually guard their nest. Crocodiles actually care for their young, and crocodiles actually are able to, you know, express, you know, not emotions, but express behavior in a way where you can't find it in turtles or any other lizards or any species of lizards. So my point is, for an animal that is able to protect, for an animal that is able to express ownership behavior, ownership means it feels that it owns something, it feels that you know, it owns a territory, it owns a youngling. Do you think they should be treated in a sense, in that sense? And they're not easy to breed, okay? Well, saltwater crocodiles are easy to breed. Not easy, but it is breedable. But the rest of the crocodiles are not easy. The false gharial is not easy to breed. You know that? Do you know that false gharial has the largest size eggs of all the crocodiles in the world? Can you imagine the amount of work or the amount of resource that the mother crocodile has to put into coming up, you know, physiologically coming up with a large size egg? The egg is about, yeah, that size, is elongated. So I compared it to my egg, about that size. It's huge. It's even bigger than the saltwater crocodile eggs. Okay. I don't think it's okay, but some people think it's okay. Some people actually, you know that crocodile farms, the crocodile farms, their biggest industry is, apart from meat, is actually the leather, the crocodile leather. So it's not even leather actually. It's actually I don't know. Do you call it leather?
Skin.
The skin. Yeah, crocodile skin. They make it into handbags and stuff. Okay, that's where the 5 freedoms apply lah. Okay. For a typical confinement, okay, why typical confinement doesn't work? Okay, this is one of the examples lah. Yeah, Glenn said many people have the perception that predatory and reptiles are insensitive. For example, snakes. Yeah, they're not. They have you know, they have feelings as well. Sajida, you have a question. What are your thoughts on our roles as vets in ecotourism setting because it's profit oriented and due to unmonitored interaction between human and wildlife? Like, what should our stance be? Your stance be? Okay, ecotourism is good if it's responsible ecotourism. So many people confuse the term ecotourism. People have this thought that, oh, okay, when it's ecotourism, people actually go into the environment, and then they get into close contact with animals. They get into close contact with the environments where the animals are, and then they bring a lot of family members, and then they have tours, and these are all ecotourism. Yes, these are some aspects of ecotourism, but what I mean by responsible ecotourism is that there is a carrying capacity, or there is a threshold for the number of people that you can actually bring into a certain part of the forest for at any one time. That must be established for it to be responsible ecotourism. For example, Taman Negara has never had that carrying capacity study until recently. In this year and in last year, they decided to run a study on what is the carrying capacity of tourists in Taman Negara. So I think that's heading towards responsible ecotourism. There is also the issue of, like Sajida was mentioning just now, the disease transmission between human and wildlife. So there needs to be a clear establishment on the route in and the route out for these ecotourism spots. Usually what happens is that there needs to be an assessment of the risk areas where you think that disease transmission is most likely to occur. So you do not let the tourists actually come into these particular areas, because there's always a risk of disease transmission. However, Sajida, whatever we're experiencing now with the endemic and also the pandemic is not due to ecotourism, but is due to consumption of wildlife meat. So ecotourism is a little bit safer as compared to consumerism on wildlife. And the third part is that for responsible ecotourism to happen, there needs to be a screening of the people actually who are going into the forest or into the natural environment to maintain that they are of a healthy stature. Some indemnity forms. Indemnity forms are always available. Indemnity forms is actually a tool that should be available at all places where animals are kept, because before this, nobody realized that zoonosis is the big thing until suddenly now COVID happened, and then okay, it came from the wildlife. Oh, wildlife are also dangerous. So by the way, having said that, do you guys know that I've been training wildlife workers and also students for the past 5 years on training and prevention of wildlife zoonosis? We went to orangutan sanctuary, we went to elephant sanctuary. For the past 5 years, I think there's a lot of students who actually came for this. We tried our best. We gave worst case scenarios. We pushed for maximum exposure. We listed down, the risks of, disease transmission between wildlife into human and from human into wildlife. We did that for 5 years, and we even gave training to, foreign students who actually came. And yet, COVID happened. The worst case scenario became a reality in 2019. We were proposing for Gap for Wildlife. Gap for Wildlife is actually an initiative run by my team, to create gaps, in terms of physical gap and also economical gap between us and the wildlife. We did not succeed. I was very frustrated because not many people were into it. When we talk about wildlife, always the budgetary or the emphasis by the government is put at the bench. The front runners are always human health. Front runners are always the economy, profit making. So health, not human health. Health is always put. We give money for health. We give money for animal health. We put it aside, but it's always at the bench. Uh, um, we did not succeed. So instead of that gap for wildlife that we were promoting, we now have gap for human. So there must be a gap between. The irony is that then instead of creating a gap between us and the wildlife, we have already created, because we did not succeed to do that, we have managed to succeed in creating gap between humans. So now when you stand in the LRT or MRT, when you're sitting at the restaurant, there's always the X's next to you. You notice the X's next to you? That's the gap between you and another person. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating, right? And I'm working with it for the past 10 years, 15 years, trying to how to say, put forth the idea that it is actually dangerous to have too much exposure between wildlife and human, and between human and wildlife. Consumption wise, if you go to Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, there's too much consumption of wildlife, and nobody noticed, nobody bothered till the small market in Wuhan, China became the zero ground. Now I have to give class online. So, okay, back to the lecture. For a typical confinement, these are the issues. Okay, there's lack of sensory of stimuli, restricted movement, feeding and other behavioral opportunities, abnormal social groups, and lack of area. I have 72 slides. False proximity to humans, too little environmental control, and too much predictability. Okay. So, welfare issue 1, provision of food and water, basic need. Okay, method of presentation, feeding. You must all consider this when you're keeping wildlife in captivity. Feeding frequency, nutritional balance, and also the hygiene of the food. And then for all individual wildlife, there's different specific requirements, nutritional requirements. Even between the individual in a single species, there's also different requirements. Some animals need more, some animals need less. Species behavior, the size, condition, physiological, and also the reproductive and health status. Okay, for welfare issues 2, provision of suitable environment. Okay, there must be appropriate environmental conditions for comfort and well-being. Inside and outside of the enclosure must offer shelter. Enclosure and barriers must not harm the animals. Okay, these are better. These are smooth, stainless steel. It's not stainless, but it's smooth steel. And not wires. There must be a balance between hygiene and biological needs. Okay. This last statement, balance between hygiene and biological needs. Can somebody elaborate to me? What does it mean, balance of hygiene and biological needs? What will be the biological needs when you're talking about hygiene?
Doctor, is it like if some wildlife needs mud to cool themselves?
Yes. Yeah, you get
So
a
yeah,
they
so
need
it's
mud to
like
cool themselves.
when we must provide mud. So but at the same time the mud must be clean and suitable for the wildlife.
Is there such thing as a clean mud?
Mm, I don't know.
But I get what you mean. Instead of trying to come up with clean mud, you must actually come up with mud, and then you must what it means here. The statement is balance between hygiene and biological needs. Is that okay? Some animals need mud. Okay, you can have mud in there, but then the animal that particular environment must be hygienic. So the mud is restricted to one corner perhaps, or the mud is restricted to one section, and before the animal is moved into a different area, there needs to be some form of requirements where the animals need to be subjected to a certain cleaning, or the area needs to be subjected to a scheduled cleaning over time or something like that. I'm sitting facing the outside of my room and there's a lot of crows. Can you hear the crows in my speaker?
No, doctor.
Oh, tak dengar eh? Okay. Right. All right. Okay. Welfare issue number 3, provision and healthcare. So there must be routine observations for its condition, health and behavior. Enclosure size and design must avoid injury. Enclosure must protect animals from predators, build-up and spread of diseases and parasites, and also appropriate veterinary care must be available. So there are predators for animal in captivity? Betul atau tak? Are there predators for captive animals?
Ada.
Ada, betul. What kind of predator? I mean, what will be this? What will be this? What will the situation be? You know, for a captive animal to have predators?
An enclosure.
Night enclosure. Okay. I'll explain. Kevin said just now there's predator for animals kept in captivity. That's very true. Okay. That does not mean that the animal can be preyed upon. No. But the presence of predator, you know, the presence of predator, for example, if you keep an animal in a zoo, you try and keep the deers next to the tiger enclosure. That would not be welfare centric, right? If you keep a samba deer enclosure, you keep it adjacent or very near to a tiger enclosure, what do you get? What do you
Stress,
get?
doctor.
Stress to the predator, stress to the samba deer, and also, yeah, agitated tigers. Good. You both get marks. Okay. Stress to the samba deer because the tiger is always there eyeing in, and frustration, you know, for the tigers because that is my food over there, or that is my toy, but I'm not able to play it. Okay. So yeah, this is what I mean. You know, enclosures must protect animals from predators, either actual predators that actually can come inside the enclosure, like creepy crawlies, or actual predators that is not able to prey upon the animal but can still provide stress. Welfare issue number 4, expression of normal behavior. All wildlife veterinarians must understand biology, habitat, and husbandry needs. Life in captivity must meet these needs. It must encourage species-specific normal behavior and minimize abnormal behavior. So, for some of the issues that we're going to look into, protection from fear and distress, okay, must be cared for by qualified and experienced staff. Handling must avoid discomfort, distress, or injury. Housing must be appropriate. It must promote feeling of safety and security. You must house social species together. You must provide place to escape, which means that a night stall. Okay. You must prevent unresolved conflicts. Okay. Sometimes male animals cannot be kept together, because they fight. So must split them. And you must also provide environmental enrichment. These are how environments of captive animals can be changed for the benefit of their inhabitants. So some of the goals of enrichment is to increase the frequency and diversity of positive natural behaviors. Some enrichments are there to as a necessity for the animal. Some enrichments are there to promote movements and also interaction of the animals. Okay. So it must also decrease the occurrence of abnormal behavior. It must maximize utilization of the environment. It has to increase the animal's ability to cope with the challenges of captivity or the wild. Okay. So these are one of the examples of thyroid enrichment. It depends on the reason for keeping the animals. Okay. You have long-term and you have short-term residents. So depending on the management of the particular animal. For long-term residents, you must mimic or reproduce salient features of natural habitat or positive welfare. You must reduce or eliminate salient features, which is negative welfare. So, okay, for example, you must think of a long term, okay, when you want to create enrichment for a long term animal, okay. But you must also not allow that long term enrichment to be a customized or the animal to be so accustomed to that particular environment, particular enrichment that you allow the animal to become you know to a certain point in time bored with that particular enrichment. So you must you must think of changes, you know. I like this one scene question. Hi doctor, what do you think of the welfare of an aquarium? Because some fish are kept together with their predator. If I want to be safe with this, I would do this as an assignment to all of you. Because I honestly have no answer to this. Okay, what do you think of the welfare in aquarium? Because some fish are kept together with their predator. I am not at liberty to say anything about fish or aquariums because I might say the wrong thing. So I'm not a fish guy. So, but I get what you mean lah. Okay. Fish, 95% of all fish are, you know, carnivorous animals. They don't eat anything other than fish as well. So I cannot answer this question at the moment. I will keep thinking of it and probably try and give you an answer after I consult Dr. Hassan or Dr. Diana. But maybe you can actually you channel this question to Dr. Diana, our new FYP topic for one senior. But please don't ask me to be your supervisor, okay? I don't know anything about, not that I don't know anything, but that is a very interesting question. My only suggestion is that keep bigger fish so that you don't have space for other fish. Okay, those small ones, I know. My kids also have aquarium. Suddenly you saw in the morning there's like 5 fish. By the end of the day, there's only one left, and that one is the biggest. I have no answer to that. It's welfare to the big fish, but not welfare to the to the smaller one. Killer question, by the way. Thank you for the question. You get marks for just giving the question. Okay, types of enrichment to short-term residents. For short-term residents, you must provide salient features or stimuli of a natural habitat because you want to, like I said just now, if you rescue a sun bear, you want to put it near the environment where you rescued it with as much of enrichment of the natural habitat so that the less the animal felt that it was kept in captivity, the better. Okay. For you must also include negative aspects to improve survivability following release. Okay, so maybe less nutrition, you know, so to increase its foraging behavior. You know, difficult places to climb, you know, to increase its ability to climb after being, you know, treated. Climatic extremes, thermal discomfort, variable and widely dispersed food sources, subtoxic food. I don't want to try with subtoxic food. Okay, this is just a suggestion by some people. Okay, subtoxic food. I don't feel it's okay to give, you know, a degraded food, you know, for an animal that you keep in captivity. So no, but you know, depending on your future management lah. Okay. pathogens, changing environmental features. These are all things that we cannot control. So we want to emulate as much as possible for the animal to be living in its natural environment, but there's only so much that we can control. So this I will go as far as disperse food source. Okay, I will not actually allow pathogens to be, I will try to minimize the amount of pathogens to be in the enclosure, and also, you know, all of this must be permitted by animal protection laws. Okay. So for increased survivability, okay, survival skills, there must be orientation, feeding and foraging, disease keeping animal for rescue and rehabilitation, obtaining suitable places to rest and sleep, interspecies interactions, for example, with predators, and intra-specific interactions, for example, to breed, for reintroduction guidelines, they exist in IUCN, a copy of 1998. The welfare of animals for release should be of paramount concern through all stages. Okay. Okay, now let's look at zoos. Okay, the first zoo was thought to be the Tiergarten Schönbrunn, or Zoo of Vienna, which opened in 1752. London Zoo opened almost a century later in 1847 and served as a model for later zoos in Europe and also in the US. In 1874, okay, the Lincoln Park Zoo, who claimed to be the oldest free public zoo in the US, bought its first animal, a bear cub, for $10. Okay. By the turn of the 20th century, there were as many as 225 zoos in the US only. Where animals were kept in cramped cages, enclosures, or tanks, often alone, indoors with limited access to fresh air and sunlight. Okay. One very prominent scientist in the field of zoo and captive wildlife management, Zoo Director Emeritus. So there's a title, Zoo Director Emeritus. David Hancock, with 30 years of experience in managing zoos, noted that at the turn of the 20th century, zoo managers and designers knew nothing about wild habitats of these animals or of their natural diets, breeding habits, natural groupings of lifestyles. Bread and milk mixed with boiled rice was the staple diet for numerous species in most zoos. The daily ration of an elephant at the Jardin de Plantes was 80 pounds of bread, 12 pints of wine, and 2 bucketful of gruel. Okay. Oh yeah, started lambat tadi eh. Okay, so I will pass the notes to Yuki. If you have time, maybe we can continue the lecture. Banyak lagi ni. Saya you guys tak ingatkan banyak cakap. Alright, stop sharing first. Okay, any last questions before we dismiss? I'm only having the class with you, right? Yes?
Oh, sorry. I was just wondering, like, when do you want to have another class in? Like, approximately which week?
We'll discuss this over WhatsApp if it's necessary, yeah. If it's necessary. Because I have half of the slides still. I don't know why I didn't quickly. But on the schedule, I only have this week with you, right?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, tak apa. Nanti we'll find a slot lah, 1 hour slot somewhere. So, okay, thank you very much. Please proceed to your next class. Thank you very much for coming. I'll pass the notes to Yuki later. Yuki, please remind me. Okay, your class dismissed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, doctor.